I am what it says I am.
How excellent is your name.
There's a man anointed of God.
Make Jesus glad and the devil mad.
Amen. Let's rejoice.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Glorious Way Church on this Wednesday night. We're in the middle of a series called Roadmap to Kingdom Wealth, and this is the third one in that series. Claire and I got to start this or kick this off with Pastor in the very beginning, and talked about some big picture things, some overview of kingdom finance and God's plan for you. You know, it says in Proverbs 10:22 that the blessing of the Lord makes one rich, and He adds no sorrow with it. And so there's a plan. There's a plan and a way for us to succeed and accomplish all that God has for us in His kingdom, and to not run short while doing it. Amen. And so we'll just hit some overview of what we started with. We started the series off with a video with Dr. Oral Roberts talking about he had received a very stern warning from God. And he was warning the people, warning the church, the church in America, that America is not ready for the second coming. And the church is not ready for the second coming. And he talked about there being a wasting of power. And specifically, he talked about the church being deep in debt, and people, individuals in debt, and specifically credit card debt, that high interest rate debt that's so easy to spend, so easy to get caught up in debt. And the way out is such a painful escape. And he talked about how people are not in position to obey God. When God calls us to do something, we have to say, oh God, I'm sorry, I can't. You see, I've got to make the credit card payment this month. And so his very strong urging back then in 2005 was get out of debt right now. And here we are 20 years later in 2025, and the same holds true. And then on the next Wednesday, Jay and Selena got to minister on the leaks. And so let me just ask people in the audience right now, have y'all taken time to do some kind of accounting, to look at what you're spending, to understand what the outgo is? Because it's hard to
Don't
plug.
shame anybody, James.
It's hard to plug the leaks.
You don't have to raise your hand if you didn't.
Well, I think everybody's understanding we got to account for things.
We do, and some other things we talked about. We just in general, moving from the curse to the blessing, and how there's an ease that comes upon us when we're just in the blessing, and then we're under the spout where the glory pours out, and then just how putting God first opens the door for Him to be able to perform all these other things that we need in this life. But we have to put Him first. We have to obey Him with the tithe. And then what is your why? And I think a lot of us just, you can amass. We see the worldly wealthy, and they just amass their wealth, but they have no grounding. They have no joy in their heart. They have no love. And so it's empty. So we understand that, hey, it's kingdom wealth. It's to build the kingdom.
That's right.
And so then Jay and Selena went into purchasing, just rebuking the devourer, stopping the leaks. We're going to close the door on those things. We're going to purchase insurance, all kinds of practical things that they had a lot of, and even down to specific apps you can use to manage and get a hold of your spending, and just being faithful over your flocks and herds, to know the state of thy flocks. And so we've talked about those things, and so we need to get right into. We have a lot of content tonight about the income side, about shifting gears now from talking about loss and the devourer, and now, hey, what is our engine that makes us go down that road of kingdom wealth? And so
yeah, that's right. And so the answer, if you're trying to fill a bathtub with water, and you have leaks in that bathtub and water's coming out and water's going in, the answer is not more water, at least not in that moment. And so once you've plugged the leaks, we're talking about tonight, after you've stopped the leaks, now you can open the spigots up and fill that tub.
Yes, let's open. How many are ready to open?
Yep, let's get our bathtub full. I'm gonna start. You take my notes for just a second. I'm gonna walk off camera, and I'm gonna pull the whiteboard out. And I've got some things loaded on here. But can you imagine, y'all see that Monopoly board right there in the middle? And so Lee is going to jump up and adjust that camera because he can't see the Monopoly board.
And
on
I am
there,
right
but
in
there
the
is a
way.
Monopoly board on here. But can y'all imagine playing a game of Monopoly where all you did is roll the dice and work around the board, and you never bought an income-producing property, and your best hope was to make it around the board and stay out of jail and hope to get around one more time where you could collect that $200? How would that be for a plan?
That was a long, slow game to lose like that. And I can remember crying over stuff like that. That when you never land on a property to buy it and then everybody else oh.
Yep.
Yes.
So the entirety of that game is built on building your income streams. And that's a success lesson for life. But before you build a whole bunch of streams, you have to start with one stream. And so the very first thing on our list is having an active income. Proverbs 14:23 says, "In all labor there is profit, but idle chatter leads to poverty." And so at the start,
Stop talking and start doing.
that's it. Get to work. Get to work. Proverbs 10:4-5. "He who has a slack hand becomes poor, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. And he who gathers in summer is a wise son, and he who sleeps in harvest is a son who causes shame."
Ooh, sleeps when? What time is it now? I think it's harvest time. Have y'all checked the calendar? Everybody say it's harvest time. So
It's
we're not
harvest time.
asleep. It's time. It's a year of milestones, and we are we're doing the natural side tonight, but there is a supernatural element that God will do when we do our part.
So you got different types of active income, and this is going to be what we're minoring on tonight. But being a good employee, having a job, just working for someone and earning an honest wage is number one. Beyond that, there's entrepreneurship, where you're adding value to something. You're creating something that there's a demand for. You're providing a service. You're finding your niche in a marketplace and becoming a producer and a provider and a supplier and selling that. And then there's all sorts of other industries, cottage industries, things we can do online to create value and sell things. You want to talk about women in the marketplace?
Yeah, so well, first of all, just back to cottage industries, raise your hand if you have, I don't know, made a craft and sold it at a little craft fair, or if you have had some kind of side economy, some kind of side gig like that.
How many people made homemade soap and sold it?
But that's what we're talking about, cottage industry, just something that came out of your garage that you worked out of your house. But I did want to start just hitting on, first of all, I will talk about women in the marketplace, but hear through this filter everything that we say, and know that, and I'm looking at a bunch of tithers and givers with a good heart to serve and love the Lord. But let me just tell you that the overarching all of this is the principle that a good name is rather to be chosen than great riches. So if it ever comes down to you've got to sell out what you really believe just to make a buck, you are forced to, you will lose your job if you don't compromise your values. Somebody has an axe over you and they are forcing you they're going to take away your income. Let me just encourage you, do not sell out. It pays to keep your heart right. That comes from putting God first. If you put him first, he will always find a way to bless you. It might not happen in the order that you want. You might have to go through a season, but never sell out. And I have a story. Bryce and Renee Treywick could not be here tonight, but he recently told me, so he's worked for an engineering firm for almost 25 years. He was 1 month short of his 25-year. But the company cut him. They just let him go because at 25 years he was going to hit a new echelon and they were going to have to pay him more new benefits, right, Micah? All of that. And so, they just kind of, never mind. And so I'm sure that he was very tempted to feel very discouraged. And he stuck by his faith, and it just turned out that the company, they could not really live without his skill. Turns out he was not very replaceable. Turns out in order to make any kind of profit, they had to hire him back. And he may not have gotten those same benefits, but they had to pay him twice what they were paying him before, an hourly wage. And by the time the contract is all done, he's going to have made more than he would have if he would have gotten into that echelon.
That's the favor of God.
And that's just the favor of God. So I just want to encourage everybody, when it looks dark, just stick to your faith. Know that and so now I feel like I can get into, I'm looking at a lot of women out here, and men, so I just want to talk about roles in the home real quick. Obviously, women, if you are single, then you can be amassing all of this for your future, and God your maker is your husband, and he is covering you and protecting you. But if you're a woman who is married, then sometimes there's a dichotomy. I want to speak to women in the marketplace, because if we're married and we're someone's helpmeet, and we are supposed to help, that's our primary role in our life, is to be a helper of our husband. And we can secondarily have a job in the marketplace, outside the home or inside the home. We can do something to make, but our orientation of our life and our attitude is always to help our husband do the vision for the family that you have together decided on. He's going to be that, and he's primarily oriented, not that he can't help at home, but he's primarily oriented toward the marketplace, primarily. And so it's our, as a woman, we submit to each other, but we're helping him in that way. And so but even so, if you look at Proverbs 31, that woman is,
she was a busy woman,
bringing in some cash for her family. It is pretty awesome to see. And I just want to quickly, she's worth far more than rubies. He will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil. She seeks wool and flax and willingly works with her hands. She is like the merchant ships who brings her food from afar. I mean, my food comes from Costco and Tomball, but anyway, she arises when it's yet night. She provides food for her household, portion for her maidservant. So she's caring for her household first, and then she considers a field and buys it. So she's into some real estate. She knows some stuff. And from the profits of that, she's planting a vineyard. She perceives that her merchandise is good. She stretches out her hand to the distant. In other words, she's making some stuff at home, and she's giving to the poor. She's selling. She looks great. She's taking care of herself. She's wearing the best, making the best, and then she sells some of the clothes that she wears. So she's got a lot going on here. And so women, I don't want you to feel, you don't feel bad about your prosperity. And we can all participate in this economy. Amen.
So let's contrast that a little bit with what our economy has turned into. This nation, we used to be a nation where one family could be supported by a single income. And typically the man would go out into the world and go to work, and the wife would stay home with the kids and be the nurturer of the family, and she took care of the home, and she could have a side gig, and she could do some things besides that, but she didn't leave her family to go have a career outside in the world. And now we're in a place where just to have a family anymore, it really takes two incomes just to make it. And that ought not be so.
It ought not be so, but at the same time, I believe if we put these principles to work, then we can let God bless us out of that condition.
Yeah,
and we can have the desire of our heart.
You're going to hear some things tonight that will create a path in your mind where you can see a way, if that's your desire, to be a single income family and to have a mom and a wife that stay at home and look after the kids, and maybe she does some things at home, but she's not building her career outside of the family, independent of the family. If you have that desire, I want you to know that that's a godly desire. That's something that God has a plan for. And if you want to walk that out, you can have that. And you'll start to see a way forward after tonight. Some ideas are going to percolate. Remember that through tithing and giving offering and honoring God first, He doesn't rain down money and cars and houses and things out of heaven. He's going to rain down the ideas, concepts, and insights. And when you put those things to work in your life, one idea from heaven will change your life and turn things around from you. So let's get on with the major part of the content tonight. When we were up here, I talked about a plan that was a failing plan, and I think I got it up here on the board. We talked about the median savings for the Americans by the time you're retirement age is about $200,000, and the average cost of living for a single person is about $55,000. If you're a married couple, it's roughly $80,000. And then if you add Social Security into that, you'll get a little bit more income. But the whole design of the system that we're in now, many people are in now, is to go to school, make good grades so you can get into a good college, so you can get a degree, work for a good company so that you can work for about 40 years, and maybe they got a 401k match and you put money into that. And it's great if the company puts money into that too, but it's effectively a big pot of money that when it's structured so that you have low taxes on it when you have little or no income at the end. And so when you're trying to retire, you're actually aiming at having little or no income so that you don't have a big tax hit when you take money out of your 401k or your IRA. And so to aim at having little or no income and hope that you have enough money left in this pot, I'm going to stop working, I'm going to end my career, and I've got this pot of money, and let's see how far $200,000 is going to take me on the living expenses for me and my family, plus a little bit of Social Security. You're looking at maybe 6, 7, possibly 8 years of funding left for your life. And so you're really just kind of saying, well, I hope the money doesn't run out. I hope I die before the money runs out. And that's kind of where that plan takes you. And that's not a good plan.
That's not in the Bible.
That is not in the Bible.
No, what I read is he'll be fat and flourishing and still bear fruit in old age.
In old age.
He'll still bear fruit in old age. If we trust in the Lord and we put him first, he will still bear fruit.
That doesn't mean that you have to be grinding out a living in old age. It means that you have built something that bears fruit in old age. And you can still have a plenteous income in old age. Let's talk about the parable of talents, Matthew 25. Jesus likened the kingdom of heaven to a man who traveled to a far country. He called his servants in, and he delivered his goods to them. And it said he gave, to the one 5 talents, to another 2 talents, and to another 1 talent.
I want to point out in verse 15, it says, each according to his own ability.
His own ability.
His own ability. And so everybody got something. Everybody got, and a talent was a huge, it was like, I think I calculated one time, it was like $100,000 or something. So God gave seed money to people, but the talent represents really anything that God gives you. Everybody has something that God gave him. Ability, good genes, I don't know, whatever you have that God gave you. It can be money, but he gave you opportunity. He always gives us opportunities. And he doesn't want us to waste those things. He wants us to be faithful over them.
God didn't shortchange anybody.
That's right.
He didn't shortchange anybody. Everybody has something, has some ability, some gift, some talent, something bestowed on them by God, some plan for their life to be successful. And so don't feel like I'm not good at anything, I can't do this stuff. That's a lie from the devil.
Raise your hand if you know somebody with a really rough story, but God used it to put a fire in their belly and now they're very successful. We all know people like that.
Yep. So getting back to the parable of talents, one got 5, another 2, and another 1, each according to his own ability. And the expectation was that they would be producers while their master is out. When the master returned, he checked up on them. And so the one with the 5 talents came back and said, Master, look, I took the 5 and I turned it into another 5. So I've got 10 now. He doubled it.
Yeah.
And it said he gained by trading. Each one of these gained by trading. And so the master's response was, well done, good and faithful. Again, with the 2, somebody had 2 talents, gained by trading, produced another 2 talents. Well done, good and faithful. And then what happened to the one who had the 1 talent? It said he was afraid of his master, that he would lose. If he lost it, he would be disappointing to his master. Well, of course, if you lost it, that's disappointing. But he buried it. He didn't lose it. He protected it. He buried it. He said, look, I still got the one thing you gave me. And the master called him wicked and lazy.
So he was lazy and he was fearful.
Yep.
So those are 2 things we have to overcome. It's in everyone's nature. Everyone would rather just have the status quo because that is comfortable for us. Everybody would rather, our flesh would rather just keep things the way they are and not take a risk and sit on the couch. And, how many of you canceled your Netflix recently? I did. So anyway, but, we'd rather do something else. But there is an excitement about trading in the marketplace.
Yep. So the master said here, you should have at least deposited my money into the bank where I could have at least collected interest. So at the bare minimum,
Don't put it under your mattress.
Don't put it under the mattress. Don't bury it in a hole. Do something that produces interest. This is where your money works for you. And so I've got a handout that y'all should have picked up on the way in here. It's a lot of pages. It has a lot of information. I am not going to cover everything that's in here.
Come on.
It's
Can
a
we
lot.
Calculate compounded interest?
So
Did y'all
it
bring
is
your
calculated
calculators?
in here. You can look at this stuff right in here. So the very first thing on this list, we need to be tithers. We need to be sowers of seed. That puts you into position to be producers under God's plan, under His blessing. And I know we're fond of saying that your savings will never outperform your giving, and that is true.
Sowing. Yeah,
you're sowing, your giving produces. It's seed that goes in. But on the practical side tonight, we need to have an emergency fund built up, so that when life happens, you don't have to cut everything back and stop and take your kids out and stop eating food and just go down to the bare minimum here. And so save. Whatever income you have on your active income side, you need to be taking a piece of that. Decide between a husband and a wife, decide how much you can afford to take out of that. And I encourage you to not deposit a check in the bank and then withdraw some money out and then deposit it into a savings account. Set up something so that you don't even feel it, you don't know it. If you have direct deposit, simply direct some into your operating or checking account and direct some more into another amount into a savings account that bears interest.
So just to sum up, so if your priorities are, number one, be a tither, because you don't want to rob God and be under a curse. So get out from under the curse. Tithe. I can't afford to tithe. You cannot afford not to tithe.
Yep.
James told that story. It's true. You cannot afford not to. But once you are a tither, then you're starting to build up your emergency fund.
Yep, build up that
Absolutely.
fund. Jay and Selena talked about attacking the debts, the snowball. Do all of that. Have an emergency fund. Build up that emergency fund. And you do that by saving, and don't just save it in the hole or under your mattress. Produce some interest with that. And so for your benefit on here, I've got some simple interest calculation, a simple interest calculation and a compound interest calculation so you can see the difference. A compound interest is simply this. If you do simple interest, it's the principal times the rate times the time. And you'll end up, so if you put $1,000 away and you earn 5% interest in that account, and if it's earned over the course of 1 year, $1,000 produced $50 in 12 months. That's simple interest. If that interest is compounded monthly, the 5% will be divided by the number of months in a year, and then that interest will be calculated every month and deposited into that account every month. And then the next month, you're earning interest on what you started with, plus the interest that you earned. And the next month,
that 1 month,
you've got 2 months of interest earned that you're earning interest on. And so it starts to compound and grow at a little bit faster pace. And so you can look at those calculations and understand that. And so the frequency of the compounding matters. There are other investment mechanisms listed in here that bear interest. And some of these bear simple interest, and you can look at various types of bonds, like the U.S. the double E savings bonds, the U.S. series bonds. There's options with those. Also, CDs. How many familiar with CDs, certificates of deposit? So this is kind of like a savings account in a bank that earns a particular amount of interest. And there's some benefits to that because it's producing interest. There's a couple of different types there. There's something called a brokered CD that tends to earn a compounded interest. and has the flexibility to withdraw it or to sell those CDs quickly if you need to. So when you're putting money away in a savings account, it's very liquid. You can make withdrawal when you need it.
Yeah, this is all like when we're talking about this, we're talking about for your emergency fund.
Yep.
Put it in something like this that he's talking about, where it's at least carrying a little bit of interest. It probably won't outpace inflation. So this is not your long-term retirement plan. This is not your long-term savings plan, but gets you 3 to 6 months worth of expenses in this account.
So if you have a savings account
like
that earns a simple interest, that's good. If you were to take some money and buy a CD that would earn a little bit higher interest rate, that's even better. But there's a penalty if you withdraw that money out early. And so you can lose on that one. And so you can get a 3-month CD, a 6-month, a 9-month, a 12-month, a 5-year. You can get CDs for various lengths of time. But if you tie your money up for a whole year, and that's your emergency fund and you need it, now you're in a bind when it goes to get it. So my recommendation is, if you're going to put money into CDs, is to stagger these things. You might get one for 3 months, and another for 6 months, and another for 9 months. You can stagger the maturity date of these CDs so that every few months you have another one maturing, and that money becomes accessible to you again in case you need it. And so you can build all that in addition to the savings account, but at least you're earning interest. At least you're getting something out of it.
When can I talk about?
Go ahead.
Okay. So back to the parable of the talents. That is my favorite thing to say. Look, God is a capitalist.
Yep.
He wants us to gain by trading. But obviously, our system is not a perfect system that we live under right now. We do not live under pure capitalism here. And if you would like to read about that subject and how to understand the system that we live in, I would highly recommend on Audible right now, you can download Thomas Sowell's book, Basic Economics. Thomas Sowell, brilliant economist and thinker, and just kind of lets you know how the world works. But we do not live in a perfect capitalism system, not that it wouldn't be perfect. A perfect capitalist system would be among people who all love the Lord and have high morals and standards and love their neighbor as themselves, and we bring our talent into the marketplace and we serve each other, and the need that we meet in the market is paid back to us with that money that we earn. And the more we can get, if our skill or our good or service is rare and also in high demand, then we will get a bigger amount of money for our good or service. But if anybody can do it, and everybody's willing to do it, and everybody wants to do it, then our skill won't be worth as much in the marketplace. Let me give you an example. Porta potties. The porta potty business is very lucrative because not very many people are willing to go out and pick up the boxes and clean them and empty them. People don't like doing that. So I hear that there's a lot of money to be made in that bit because people aren't willing to do it. Then there are businesses that their people are not able to do it. Not everyone can be a rocket scientist. That takes a high level of training and education and intelligence. Not everybody is suited to that, and so that is a rare skill that commands a high price in the marketplace. So, but we have our system is broken because we do have corruption. We do have dishonesty in the competition. We don't have true competitive marketplace. If we did, it would be awesome. People would be prosperous like crazy. We also have government regulations, which sometimes they're needed, but many times they are just putting a cap on what we can produce. Then there are government subsidies that are encouraging things that are not productive, and we shouldn't be doing that. And so if you want to learn about all of that in policy and kind of how it relates to your life, again, Thomas Sowell, awesome. So if you can, in the marketplace, if it still holds true, even with corruption, even with interference, even with whatever else, if you feel a need in the marketplace, if you find something that nobody else can do or is willing to do, and you can do that for a little bit less money than the next guy, then you will make a profit. So be thinking about that thing that you paid way too much for, but you had to bite your tongue and do it anyway because you just couldn't live without that thing. You couldn't live without that service or that good. And what is that thing? And be willing to share that, because that'll be a fun conversation after.
Instill this stuff into your kids as they're growing. Give them opportunities to earn money. Give them entrepreneurial opportunities for them to make money.
Yeah, let them learn a skill.
Have them set a goal out front. When I was a kid, I was 16, and I recognized there's no way my parents are going to be able to buy me a car. That's not going to happen. We didn't have money. And so if it was going to happen, I had to do it. And so I used our lawn equipment to start mowing yards in the neighborhood. And then my dad drove me to some yards because my business kind of grew a little bit further. And then when I had my license, then I could drive myself I saved up money for my very first car. I had a goal, and I met the goal and built the business.
I know somebody else who did that.
So,
Raise your hand if you bought your first car by yourself. Yeah? Yes. Awesome.
All
My
right.
parents bought mine.
So what you hear tonight, let's put this into practice. If you're setting a goal and you want to know how long it takes to make a particular amount of money, there's a simple rule in this packet called the rule of 72. The example is if your investment has an 8% return, so this could be interest, but it could be any type of investment. If it produces a relatively steady rate of return in the form of a percentage here, if it produces 8%, it's going to take approximately 9 years to double, and you can see the calculation in there. And so if you're setting a goal,
talents, they doubled.
Yep, they doubled.
So it took 9 years.
Well, if they earned 8%, but I bet they did better than that.
Yeah, hopefully they did.
And there are investments that'll do a whole lot better than that. And we've got a chart broken out in here where you can see that time growth of money on the interest rate. Let's talk about stocks for a minute, since we're talking about gaining by trading and God being a capitalist here. In taking your money and investing it in someone else's business. I mean, effectively, we're talking about stocks here, but that could be any type of business that you're investing in that's going to produce something, a return for you. Stocks can produce dividend returns, so that's like having an income come back. Those can be reinvested into the stock or into the investment. They can also grow in equity. So you buy at one level and then you sell at another level, and there's a gain. There's tax implications all the way through here.
Or you can buy the thing that everybody wants, and then it drops the next day, and you can and you lose money that way.
Yeah, buy low and sell high.
Buy low. And
buy low, sell high.
Buy the thing that nobody thinks they want right now.
I'm not an expert in stocks.
Yeah.
We've owned stocks. We've made money in stocks, and we've lost money in stocks. And I'm not an expert in that. I don't recommend stocks, but people can do well with stocks.
Hire an expert if you're not
Hire
one.
an expert. If you're going to invest in the stock market, invest in some type of funds to start, something that's got your investment spread across the board in multiple industries, multiple markets, multiple products or businesses. Do something that'll provide a little bit of a safety net. If one's losing a little bit here, the others can be gaining there. But even still, and that's called diversifying your investments. But diversifying something such that when this one wins, this one's losing, and vice versa, that's really not a great ratio because you're always losing.
It is possible to diversify.
Yes.
You don't want to do that.
No.
We'll talk about that in a minute. What? Go ahead.
Let's just take the example of the S&P 500. So the Standard & Poor's 500 market, since 1957, it has delivered an annual rate of return of about 10.54%, but when adjusted for inflation, the real rate is almost 7%. So how many know we're in a state of kind of hyperinflation right now? If you want to defend against inflation, I was always told that you buy gold to protect yourself against inflation. I don't think gold is a very good investment.
Did you bring your
I did not bring my shiny gold coin, but I've got a 1 ounce gold coin.
He was going to whip it out.
I was
and let
going
it
to pull
shine for y'all.
pull this coin out, and I didn't bring it tonight. I think I bought that coin back in maybe 2013. It was roughly maybe $1,200 an ounce, and so I bought a gold coin. Today, it's worth $4,100. And you think, wow, that's awesome.
Wow.
But really, that's a reflection of how poorly the U.S. dollar is doing. The dollar has fallen. Gold didn't really change, or the demand didn't change that much for it.
It still buys pretty much the same thing that it would have
Roughly
at
the
that
same
time.
thing at that time. It just means things have cost more. So calculating inflation in here, the S&P 500 on the average will do 6.68% return on your investment. And so I've in your handout right here, I've got an example that if you started with $5,000 and plugged in and added weekly to it. So if you've got $100 from your paycheck every week going into investing into a fund within the S&P 500 market, and you did that for 10 years, you would take $5,000 plus your $100 a week, accounting for inflation and how that S&P 500 typically does, you would end up with about $82,000 in 10 years. And you didn't really feel it because it was $100 a week and you got used to living without that. And it turned into $82,000. If you kept doing that for 20 years, you'd end up with $231,000. It more than doubled in that period of time. $231,000 in 30 years, $514,000. If you did it for 40 years, it'd be over $1 million. Starting with $5,000 and adding $100 a week into something that produced an interest rate return.
So I'm a millionaire in 40 years.
In 40
if I start
years.
when I'm 20 and I do that till I'm 60, I'm a millionaire not having any other, I mean, I could be a truck driver, I could be a ditch digger, I could be whatever, but I just managed to save enough money and invest it, I could still be a millionaire when I'm 60 if I start when I'm 20. But what the world system does is when you're 20, they say get a credit card and get everything that you want right now. And now the entire model is working in reverse.
Flip it upside
and
down.
instead of a millionaire at 60, you're going to owe $1 million at 60.
It's the same rate of return for the interest for the credit card company. That's how they're making it. That rate of return works for them because it's putting you in debt.
So we can say get out of debt, and wrap you with the ruler, but it's not. It's just because it's so damaging. It's just because it takes away your wealth building potential, especially if you're young.
And if you follow the stock market, if you watch these investments and you think, okay, well, things are going up, they're gaining in value, and you're getting excited, wow, look at how this stock has increased, and then you decide to buy because you're watching it go up and you have this fear of missing out. I don't want to miss out. It's still going up. It's probably got some more room. And then you buy, and then it starts to drop. Everybody gets excited and everybody piles in and buys, but then the value goes down, and then you get scared.
You know what I see
in the Bible? And then you sell.
I don't see that in the Bible.
No.
I see that Isaac went to Gerar during a famine, and he sowed in that year in the time of famine, and he reaped 100-fold.
He was contrary to the market.
He was a contrarian. Genesis 26:12. Isaac sowed in that land that everybody else was. He could have eaten that seed. He could have sold the seed that he put in the ground. People were hungry. They would have loved to have eaten that seed right then. And so it was worth a lot of money but he sowed it in faith, believing. And so in a time of famine, and so I see that in the Bible. I see that Abram was very rich in cattle, silver, and gold. One version says in all commodities. He was rich. So he was diversified, not diversified. The reason we say diversified is because you can get into all these complicated investments that you do not understand because someone told you should diversify. And so, I'm in the stock market, I'm in real estate over here. We're going to talk about some other income. We're in this and we're in that. We bought a timeshare. I'm so sorry. Please don't do that. Anyway, you're diversified because you don't understand the thing that's working. So get real smart about, or find an expert to help you learn. And James always says experts are expensive.
Amateurs are real expensive.
Amateurs, real expensive.
Find an expert.
Find an expert and find a way to learn yourself. And do not be intimidated. I'm telling you, y'all, audible.com Get some books. Start. The Bible is great. Read your Bible every day. Start there because that puts God first. But after that, you do not have to play phone games when you're in line. You can have a book going all the time in the background, an audio. Oh, I don't like to read. You're not reading, you're just listening to the book. Somebody reads it for you. How do you think I read Thomas Sowell's Basic Economics? I listened to him narrate it. And it changed my whole perspective. It was awesome. But then find a book on wealth building. My skill, I'm not good at managing people. I could never own a business. I could never hire. You know what? You don't know what you can do.
Yeah. Amen.
Why don't you find a book on that? The guy down the street, he didn't know anything either. He just started reading and finding someone to mentor him and going to trade shows and going to conventions about that thing, whatever it is, meeting people, networking. Let God give you a plan, like something. I just read another book, Never Eat Alone. It was about, if you don't know how to network, now I don't agree with that guy's politics that wrote that book, but how to network, how to make conversation with anybody and how to make it count. That's a great book. It will change your life just to learn how, hey, I'm gonna let the Lord give me a plan. And then when people ask you, oh, Derek, how are you doing? Instead of just saying, oh, I'm fine, I'm good, yeah, the weather, you can say, I'm great. I'm hoping to get into this new venture over here. Do you know anybody who does that? Or do you know anybody in that field?
Surround yourself with people that are good at this stuff, at the things that you want to aim at.
Help you.
Yep.
They will want to connect you with resources.
So, I want to help you with something that really helped us. When we bought our first home, we had a sudden urgency after we had been there a few years. We got to sell this home and get out of it. And I thought we were going to sell it, but it turns out we made a rental property out of it. And we had never done that. We didn't go to a class. We didn't read a book. We didn't get any education on it. We talked to a realtor who kind of helped us through some of this stuff and thought it was a great idea. But we put that first home up as a rental property. It was a blessing to us. It was also a blessing to the kingdom of God because the renter was somebody who was in the neighborhood, who was already renting a home in the neighborhood, and his landlord didn't pay the mortgage. And so the home got foreclosed on and the renter had to leave the home because he had a bad landlord.
Yes. And the renter happened to be a pastor who had been praying that God would open a door for them to not have to move out of that lovely neighborhood that they thought they loved the neighborhood. And their child was at school and rode the bus in that neighborhood. They didn't want to move, and God opened a door. It was our house.
We moved out into a house that we bought, and they moved right in, and they were the best tenants that we ever had.
Yeah.
And we had them for 5 or 6 years during that time. We've made all kinds of mistakes and done things not so well, and we still made money on that. It was a blessing to them and a blessing to us.
We bought another home, and our tenant...
Let me walk through the models of this because we're short on time, and we got to get to our groups.
Okay. Our tenant burned the kitchen down.
Okay.
We got a new kitchen by insurance.
So
hallelujah.
we had several rental properties, had a kitchen fire. You know what? It was a great deal. You know why? We had insurance, and the renter we required them to have insurance. We never lost rent through the entire period. We got a new kitchen, we got new paint, we got new flooring, we got new air conditioning system.
Awesome.
We got new. By the time the house was done, it was in great shape. And we got to rent it out some more. And then when we sold it, we had a great piece of property that appreciated in value. Let me walk through some things on real estate. Real estate, I believe, is something that's going to fund the harvest.
It funded the early church.
It funded the early church. Acts chapter 4, read that. You'll see how they sold houses, they brought their possessions, they funded the gospel of that time. And I believe it'll still do that today. So let me walk through. And we're talking about passive income here. So you have a job and you're going to work and you're earning an income. These are things that produce an income while you sleep, while you're working, while you're playing, while you're going on vacation. It doesn't matter. They produce an income.
You qualify for these once you're out of debt. Once you're out of debt, now you're still snowballing, but now you're throwing it into some kind of passive income stream.
So
investment.
I have not thoroughly investigated the home that's in this packet right here. I just simply got on har.com and found a home that seemed like it was in the range of possibility to work with this model. But in this model, you've got to be in position to be able to put 20% down on a property, on a home. You have to find a home that's going to be in a good area. You got to find a home that where there's a demand for it. So a typical home in the rental market is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home with a 2-car garage. If you find that somewhere between 1,800 square feet, maybe 2,200 square feet, if you go too big or too nice, it's not a good rental property. So about the 2,000 square foot mark is the prime spot for homes. I understand that real estate has gone up in value and price, and it's a tighter market to do things in, but people buy and sell. They make money on the upside, on the downside, and all the way through the middle. Real estate is a great tool, and it has been a blessing to us. We took our first home and we turned it into other rental properties. And since then, we've turned it into investments in apartment complexes that produce at a much higher level than the single-family homes. But this single-family model right here, this is a $230,000 home in the Spring area, 3-bed, 2-bath. Looks like it's about 2,500 square feet, so it's kind of at the upper end of that size home. It requires, so let's say it's listed for $230,000 and you do some inspections on this home. Maybe it's been on the market a long time and they're really kind of in a distressed condition. They need to sell the home. They're willing to come down a little bit. You need to find a home at a good price. And so maybe you get the home for $220,000 in this model.
Or you know a realtor who knows of a home before it goes on the market.
If you have a realtor and you tell a realtor, I'm looking for deals and this is the parameter that I'm looking for, they will bring you deals before they hit the market. They'll have a deal in their pocket and they'll know when they find the right thing for you and they'll bring it to you and you can move on it right away if it's the right thing. So putting 20% down, that's $44,000 out of pocket. Maybe you got to put a little paint into it, a little repair, something minor in there. I've got the costs of the deal broken out in here. So a total out of pocket, if you saved money, if you have money to invest, you've got your emergency fund, you've got money that you can invest now. If you've got about $56,000 you can invest in this home, you could buy this home and immediately put it into a rental market, because I see that this one has been recently renovated on the inside, so it sounds like it might be pretty clean. If you check it out and it turns out to be a good deal, you buy this home, you put it in the rental market, and then you get an appraised value on it. The appraised value is $240,000 for market value on that home. So if you bought it for $220,000 and it's really worth $240,000, you've immediately captured equity in this property. Mm-hmm. So with all the cost that goes into this, if I bought this home, I would immediately capture almost $14,000 of equity right off the top. Now, I didn't get paid on that. It's just a bank account with a roof on top, and its value is a lot higher. During the course of time that I own this property, it will appreciate in value. When I go to sell this property, it's going to be worth maybe $40,000, $50,000 more than when I bought it. And so there's a gain to be had there.
Yeah.
The cash flow on this property, with the market rents in that area, this will produce about $7,000 a year cash flow. How many could use an extra $7,000 a year for doing nothing? Your money went to work for you. You put money into something and it just showed up in your mailbox on time every month, an extra $7,000 a year. This is real right here. So your rate of capital gain on this was about $14,000. You already earned 25% on your investment. $56,000 earned 25% up front. And then it produced an income for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years that you keep it rented of about $6,000, $7,000 a year. Your cash on cash return is almost 13%. You're already outperforming your savings account, your CDs, your S&P 500. You're outperforming on all of these fronts. Let's look at the types of
And someone else is paying your mortgage every month.
So let me walk through those. You've got different types of gains to be had on this. You've got equity capture, number one. Your home appreciates in value, number two. You have a monthly income that you're not working for, it just comes in. Monthly income, number three. Did you know that you do not pay income tax on the income that you make on a rental property? There is people can pay income tax on it. I just don't think you ought to, because you don't have to. Because there's this mechanism that they built in where they depreciate the value of the home over time. And you say, well, how much cash did I receive over the course of the year? $7,000. Okay, well, let me depreciate the home. on a particular scale, and you quickly find out that on paper it lost money. And so when you file your annual tax return, you show this is a terrible investment. I lost money all year long, and you don't pay taxes on a loss. In actuality, it produced an income that you don't pay taxes on. This is perfectly legal. This is not wrong. It's not unethical. It's just the rules that are in place by people who make the rules who happen to own real estate.
Yes.
You see why they make the rules that way. And then we talked about a gain. This house gained 25% on day one when you bought the house. And then when you go to sell it down the road, 3, 4, 5 years later, and it's worth $40,000, $50,000 more than that, now you've got a gain that you would have to pay a capital gains tax on. Mm-hmm. Except if you take this equity gain that you had, this captured equity and this increased value of the home, and you decide, hey, that was great. We owned one rental property. It did great. I'm going to take that and turn it into 2 or 3 or 4 rental properties, and you buy those, and you never really got to handle the gain of it. You can put it into something called a 1031 exchange, won't explain it, but it works just like an IRA where you're investing in similar investments within this thing. And you never touch the money, you never spend the money, you just keep reinvesting the money. As long as you reinvest it, you will never pay a capital gains tax. This is something.
You still get the cash flow. So if this sounds very complex, let me just say, every time you get on Bourgeois Road over here by the church, bourgeois means wealthy landowner. You confess that. I'm a wealthy landowner. When I look at the nation of Israel, all through the Old Testament, every family in Israel had their own familial land.
Yep.
They were landowners. I believe it is God's will for every Christian to own land, own property, own stuff. Every place the sole of your foot has tread, I have given it to you.
You understand what you're doing for your landlord right now.
Yeah, you're paying all of this for him.
And it's not wrong. Every time we've done this, we have provided a good and a service to somebody who needed it.
Yes.
And we did it better than others. We didn't get greedy with it. We had the best product because we made sure that home was fixed up. Everything was working. It was pretty. It smelled good. It worked. It was something that we wouldn't be ashamed to live into. We were happy for our renter to come in. So people would look at the home and they'd say, wow, this is the best one in this area. It must be a whole lot more. No, we cut the price $25 a month from other properties in the area. That means every renter that wanted to rent a property in that area went through our property and looked at it and looked at the price of ours compared to others. It was better than everyone else's and it was cheaper than everyone else's. That means we got the pick of the best renter. Best product, best price means you get the best renter who's going to take care of your property.
Yeah, we did not make up this process.
Nope.
There are a lot, but raise your hand if you know someone. I won't make you out yourself, but if you know someone who has made money in rental properties, raise your hand. Yes, it is awesome.
Make this part of your plan.
Don't say, I can't do this. I'm too nice. I couldn't collect rent. There are answers for every one of your no's. There's a way for you to overcome that and turn it in. Not that you have to invest in real estate. I'm not telling you have to. I'm just saying there are so many avenues. You can learn about the marketplace.
If you're a homeowner, if you're a renter, aim at being a homeowner. If you're a homeowner, aim at owning other properties, owning land, becoming a landlord. Aim at that, because when you move out of your first property and into your next one, it's an easy next step to rent that one out.
Yeah,
and you'll find that was really easy. And people complain about it, the toilets, the taxes, and the tenants. If you do this right, it is a blessing. The blessing of the Lord makes one rich, and he adds no sorrow with it.
You will have to read. You will have to learn.
Yep.
You will have to research.
So there are other mechanisms. We're out of time tonight, but there's other mechanisms in the real estate market. House flipping, that can be real exciting. And it can be real terrifying.
It can be terrifying.
If you do it right, you can have windfall sums of money that you can turn around and invest in rental properties after that. But that requires some special know-how. You can buy a house to flip with no money out of pocket. You think, the rental property, I had to put 20% down. If you find a good house to flip, there's a way for you to buy that with zero money out of pocket or very little out of pocket.
I would not do that if I were in credit card debt, though.
Nope. These are specialized things or ways to make sums of money. The saying that you don't get rich, quick, don't fall for the get rich quick schemes. I say don't fall for schemes, but you don't get rich slow. You get rich quick with the right things. And with a God idea, a heaven idea, with the blessing of the Lord behind it, you
Amen.
can become wealthy, have an abundant supply quick.